I'm William O'Flaherty. Welcome to the All About Jack podcast on the Knowing and Understanding C.S. Lewis YouTube channel. The following is an excerpt from the Screwtape Letters podcast, Confronting Evil in Our Time. The hosts Ian and Galen interviewed me recently for their podcast. Here's the first third of that interview. Check the show notes for how to hear the rest of it, along with their regular podcast about the Screwtape Letters. One small note, in the interview, I mistakenly said 2018 was when I started getting back into reading Lewis. The actual date was 2008.
So welcome to the Screwtape Letters podcast, Confronting Evil in Our Time. I'm Ian Faith.
I'm Galen Belinsky.
And today we're sitting down with a special guest who we're really excited to meet, William O'Flaherty. William, I hope I'm getting your name pronounced right, and it sounds like a good old Irish name there as well.
Yes. Yeah, you did quite well.
William, thank you so much for joining us. For our audience, who is William O'Flaherty?
The mystery. Who am I? Yes. Well, I do usually identify myself as a family counselor. I have a master's degree in counseling. And for the last 16 years, I've been with the same agency doing the same type of job as a family counselor. The child is the identified, but we work with the whole family system. And then more recently, actually February of this year, I learned something about myself that I didn't know. I was officially diagnosed as being autistic. Specifically, it's called level 1. Previously, before 2013, they simply refer to it as Asperger's. Actors like Dan Aykroyd and Anthony Hopkins, who has played C.S. Lewis, are also on the spectrum. And then in terms of other things I've done, it includes being a professional radio announcer, and I've been a school guidance counselor. And I've written a couple of books about Lewis.
Well, yeah, and that's one hell of a resume. And, we found you after we launched the podcast, and you actually reached out to us. And it was thrilling in the early days of getting all these different people who know so much about C.S. Lewis. And it was, to me, breathtaking, your depth of knowledge on C.S. Lewis. So where did your love for C.S. Lewis begin? And maybe share a little bit how you discovered C.S. Lewis.
Sure, yeah, they're very closely related. It was much later in life, although it is through a typical entry point for many people, and that is through Narnia. But it was only late in high school that I started to that I first read him. It was an assignment in English class, and just like the Screwtape Letters, Lewis shared once that somebody picked it among a list of books because it was the shortest one. I picked The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe among a list of books because it was about the shortest one, and I just really enjoyed it. And then that led me to wanting to know more about him. I'm sure I probably noticed that there were more books in the series, but I wanted something different. And I was at the Christian bookstore, and I asked one of the salespeople, and they shared with me the Screwtape Letters. And after that, I read Mere Christianity.
Hey, Galen, do you even remember where and when you were turned on to the Screwtape Letters? Was it before we met, or?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I had been aware of the Screwtape Letters for a long time, going back to teen years as well. Had read a couple of the letters here and there, but didn't read them didn't actually pick up the book and read it all the way through. Actually, until right before you and I connected about it.
Right.
And it was the first time I'd always been aware of that piece of work. I knew it was profound. I knew it was brilliant, but it wasn't until I actually kind of picked it up and went all the way through it that I really dove into it in a sense.
Yeah, because I remember hearing some quotes on the radio, and it's funny how there's, you get people like Paul Harvey and others, and then I was listening to Seth Leibson's show, and he actually before that, Dennis Prager's show, he quoted C.S. Lewis. And I thought, people like that, they have a gift. It's something beyond your everyday riders. And I just had to look into it. And my journey into C.S. Lewis was through that. When you get things like the Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, I heard 2 lines from that, and I'm like, I've got to read this. And it was sort of the same thing with the Screwtape Letters. I just said very little about it, and instantly I'm like, I have to dig into this. It's amazing.
Well, I've been blessed when, let's see, back in around 2018, which was the tail end of going through some transitions in life, I started to go back to reading C.S. Lewis. I had read a fair amount of him. And then from that, then I got into doing a podcast not long after and such. And then, going to hear people speak. And so most of my friends that enjoy Lewis are usually ones that have written other material, because that's part of how I got into podcasting. It's like, okay, if I interview them, then the publisher will give me a free copy of their book. But then, but yeah, I mean, at church, I have several friends that like Lewis, and and over the years, there's been different things that people say. Oh yeah, I like Mere Christianity, or
Right.
I like Narnia, and some are familiar with Screwtape. But even though it was his first claim to fame, as you may or may not know, he was on the cover of Time magazine before he was famous for Narnia. So you guys may or may not know this, but Lewis was so famous for the Screwtape Letters. I hope you enjoyed this excerpt from the Screwtape Letters podcast, Confronting Evil in Our Time, and that you'll check the description to find out how you can hear the rest of it, along with how to listen to their regular show, where Ian and Galen discuss the letters themselves. Again, I'm William O'Flaherty. My podcast, All About Jack, has been around since 2011. My YouTube channel is called Knowing and Understanding C.S. Lewis. Be sure to check out my new short feature for 2024, Misquotable Mondays and Screwtape Saturdays. Back in 2022, I did a series called Weekly Dose of C.S. Lewis Quotes that I hope you will check out along with my other interviews. Finally, everything I do related to C.S. Lewis is centralized at my website, essentialcslewis.com. And in case you didn't know, I've written 2 Lewis-themed books. The Misquotable C.S. Lewis was released in 2018. It examines 75 quotations credited to him that he either didn't write, or paraphrases of something he did, or without the context could be misunderstood. Then in 2016, my enhanced study guide to the Screwtape Letters came out. It's called C.S. Lewis Goes to Hell. Again, thanks for listening. Please consider liking and sharing this episode with others.